Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Jennifer Lee Disney, and I'm honored to be here with Gwen Howell, a member of the South Carolina Mother of the Year Association on July 13th, 2015. Thank you, Gwen, so much for being here with us today.
I'm delighted and honored to be asked to participate in this.
Well, thank you. Why don't we start by just you telling us a little bit about where you were born and raised?
Well, actually, I was born in Savannah, Georgia, but at the wonderful tender age of 3 years, my family moved to Florence, South Carolina. So I grew up in Florence, attended all the public schools there, had wonderful, wonderful friends there that I have even to this day, some of them. I went to the University of South Carolina and enjoyed every moment there also. I was fortunate enough to be secretary of the student body. I was a cheerleader for 3 years. I was in many of the organizations there, and I was lucky there. And I don't know if I want this on the camera, but I was lucky enough and fortunate enough to be elected homecoming queen one year.
That is wonderful.
And that was before I got all these wrinkles and this gray hair, you know. But I met my husband there, my roommate and friend from Florence was introduced me one afternoon, on a Sunday afternoon. It was kind of misty rain, and I had walked over to the post office. At that time, you have to go across Carolina's campus, and I was sort of down in the dumps, I think. And I saw this friend Jean talking to this young man, and she stopped me and said she wanted me to meet Gwens Howell. And we met, and we dated, and then we dated, and then he graduated, and we got married, and then we came back, and I worked as a secretary, and he went to law school. Now, that's a lot.
That's great. That's wonderful. You predicted a lot of my questions. So let me go back a little bit. Tell me about your family upbringing, brothers and sisters, or mom and dad, or anything about your early childhood.
Well, I do not have any siblings, and I did not have any siblings. And I always thought it would be wonderful to have a sister or a brother. But fortunately, and I'm sure in this day and time, I think they still think this, that if you're an only child, you're extremely, extremely selfish. That's a strong word, but that's not true. You are, I think, more independent when you do not have brothers and sisters. And therefore, when I got married, I certainly wanted more than one child, because I thought I didn't miss anything growing up as a youngster, but I always thought it would be wonderful to have somebody to talk to about our parents. Not about them, but
Right.
just to enjoy talking of the good things, the positive things.
Exactly.
So that's whatever. Oh, this is on camera, isn't it? Thank you. Okay.
You're doing great. So, what do you remember as a young woman at USC? What were your dreams, goals, and aspirations?
Well, I majored in education, and I thought at that time, of course, most of the things that were offered to young females were teaching positions. And although I had learned in high school, I majored in college, the prep courses in high school, and I also took the secretarial courses that were offered there. So I could type, I could do bookkeeping, I could, et cetera, et cetera. So when I went to Carolina, I majored in education, and I worked part-time at the university. I worked in the library one semester. Another semester I worked in a different library on campus. Another semester, I was actually back for 2 semesters. I was a secretary to one of the professors. So probably if I went at Winthrop now and I was a student, I would like to be your secretary.
I would love that.
And now they're administrative assistants. I know they've changed the name for secretaries.
Exactly. You got it. Tell us about the early years of your marriage and then the birth of your children.
Well, let's see. We got married, and as I said earlier, my husband was in the Marine Corps, and he was stationed at Cherry Point, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
So we started out our married life there for about 4 weeks, and he was sent on maneuvers. So I went home to Mama, and he was on maneuvers for about 5 weeks, maybe 6. I don't remember. But he wrote me every day, and I wrote him every day. And then when he was coming back to Cherry Point, I think that he let me know. So I drove his car, which was the only car we had, and met him as the ship came off the water. I was there like one of the World War II girls, you know, to greet him. And we lived in, what did they call it? The barracks. He was a second lieutenant. But he lived in the barracks, and he found us a duplex house. It was a duplex for offices. So we moved into one side, and fortunately had a delightful young couple next door that we became close friends, and with other people in the Marine Corps down the street. So we had a lot of good times, and I learned to cook. I did not know how to cook, but I learned to cook.
That's good.
And fortunately, he was not real, it didn't make any difference to him what we had.
That's good. How many children do you have?
3.
3.
All of them have graduated from the University of South Carolina.
Wonderful.
My oldest one is an attorney in Columbia. It's a daughter. My second daughter is a teacher, or was. She's a homemaker now in Atlanta, and she has 3 children. My older daughter has 3 children, and my son lives here in Spartanburg. He has 2 boys, Howell boys. So I have 8 grandchildren, 4 granddaughters and 4 grandsons. So I'm real. And of course, none of them are tiny anymore, and I miss the little ones. But I have one more, I think. The last one will graduate next year, and he's in mechanical engineering at Carolina. One graduated last year, and has a position in Mount Pleasant with a construction company. My second daughter, her son is a Major League Baseball player, and her daughter lives in New York, and she's getting married next year. Her youngest is just graduated from, all of them went to Georgia, University of Georgia. The oldest son of my oldest daughter is a professor at Coastal Carolina. So I have academia, I have baseball, I have engineers, and I'm proud of each one of them. So it's fun to have 8 grandchildren.
You took the words right out of my mouth. You must be so proud of your children and your
I
grandchildren.
am. I certainly am. I have every reason to be.
That's wonderful.
And of course, I might be very prejudiced too, but that's okay. A grandmother can be prejudiced.
That's right. You've already talked about some of the activities you were involved in. I want to get a sense of the activities you were involved in terms of family. You've talked a little bit about employment, volunteerism, community service, and it could be a combination before and after you were married. But tell us about some of the activities that you've been involved
Well, when
in.
my husband finished law school, of course I worked as a secretary, quote, slash administrative assistant for the state office of the National Foundation for Infantile Paralysis that was in Columbia that time. Then, when we moved to Spartanburg, I was fortunate enough to I was the secretary at the Episcopal Church of the Advent, which I attend, and we attended. The secretary happened to have to leave, and one of the lawyers, I think one of the lawyers that my husband worked for, suggested that I interview, and I was secretary of the Episcopal Church until I had my second daughter. And then I have been very involved with the church since then. And it's a huge part of my life. It's my second home.
How did you become a member of the South Carolina Mother of the Year Association and Selection Committee?
Well, one of the best committees that I've ever served on was the South Carolina Mother of the Year Committee. And my cousin, Ann Pache Perrin, was on it, and she was getting ready to resign, which I didn't really know at the time, but she asked me would I be interested, and I said, well, if they approve me, if they vote for me, I would love to participate if I can contribute. And that's how I got involved with it. And it's really one of the best committees I've ever had an opportunity to serve on.
Tell us a little bit about that service. What was that like, serving on the committee and making, in terms of your peers, your committee members, and also making the tough decisions you had to make to select Mothers of the Year?
Well, it was really a pleasure to serve with such sophisticated, knowledgeable, caring members of the committee. And like I said, I guess it was the most satisfying responsibility of any committee I had ever served on. The only regret that I had, and I think this is true probably of everyone else, was that we could not select but one of the many nominated. And there's so many out there to this day, and then that need to be recognized because it's just the way the world is, I guess. But each mother, in my opinion, has a PhD in a lot of areas, not just one.
That's right.
And it's really been the only way I think that they've been ever recognized it's just been the only way I've ever noticed that I've ever been aware of that they are given any kind of recognition.
You kind of predicted one of my future questions, which is, do you think women's work and women's roles as mothers are adequately recognized by society today? And it sounds like you would say no.
Well, that's an interesting question because I think when they are only, quote, only, in the public's eyes, a outside of the house working mother, I do not think that overall they're given enough recognition. In addition to that, I do think those moms that do have a profession or work outside the home and try their very best to be a good influence and a good mom, it's very difficult, very, very difficult to they have to spread themselves pretty thin, I think. And that's not always a good thing, but it's not because they're not trying. They're trying. And I think that they don't, I hate to say it, I mean, I think some people say, well, she doesn't work outside the home. You know, she's got it made. Well, then there are those that don't work out of the home, outside the home, that say, I don't know how she does it all. I do not know how working outside the home, and then she takes care of the children and the husband and all the volunteer activities, etc. So
Right.
I think it's a really, really smart female if they can have a good balance with that on both sides, working outside the home and not working. Does that make sense
Yes,
to you?
you said you've hit at so many important themes, I think, of this research project, which is, first of all, you never ask a woman, does she work? Because all women work. It's
That's
exactly
right.
as you said, it's do you work inside the home, outside the home, or both?
Mm-hmm.
And so you've just kind of clarified that beautifully. And then you talked about this issue of balance, which I was also going to ask you about. How were you able to balance raising your children? You worked as a school teacher, you worked as a secretary, did a lot of volunteerism in your church and the Mother of Year Association. How were you able to balance all of your work inside and outside the home?
Well, when my husband was in law school and I was working for in an office, I had a wonderful, wonderful person that took care of my daughter. She was about 8. My daughter was about a year old, and she was a very caring black female with a wonderful, wonderful sense of love. And therefore, I was very comfortable when I went to work. And did not get off until 5, and so she didn't live very far, but I would take her home. And I think that my daughter, it's the oldest daughter, has a wonderful sense of non-prejudice with all walks of life, no matter that not only Caucasians, but black people, immigrants, you name it. She just has a sense, and I think it was because she was small and she didn't recognize color.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if I've expressed that really well
That's
or not.
beautiful.
But
How long was she cared for by someone
2
other
years.
than you? 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then we moved to Spartanburg, and then I was lucky enough to found another black female that was smaller in size, but was I was comfortable with her also taking care of them. And then about a year and a half, about 2 years after I guess we got here, I expected my second daughter, and so I resigned from the secretary of the church, and then I decided I wanted a little help during the week to do some. I don't like to iron, and so I wanted somebody to iron. So I got a part-time job at Converse College, and so I could afford someone to come in 2 days of the week. I worked part-time every day, and so I could afford somebody to come take care of her for a little while. So that was interesting. So I got to know a number of professors and the administrative people there. So in fact, our children always, I think it's because my husband was that way and I was that way, we always felt it was important for them not to just make money, but for the responsibility of having a job. So we had found them something to do pretty early. I don't know if it's had bad effects or good. Hopefully it's had good effects on them.
So you just spoke really well about how women balance
Yes.
working inside the home, working outside the home, part-time, being able to afford to hire help, whether it's with the house or with the children, and that's all part of, I guess, a series of choices.
Yes,
That
yes,
women,
it is.
That women and men, husbands and wives, mothers and fathers make. How well do you think women are able to balance all those choices today? When you kind of talked through how you were able to do it. How do you think?
I think
women
it's
and
more
men-
difficult today. I see that. I don't think that they have an opportunity to do as much volunteer charitable work as we did, because they are in an office, or they're in the courtroom, or they're in a medical profession, and they don't have the time. Particularly if they are married and have children, there are only so many hours in the day.
That's right.
And I do think now, in 2015, with the economy like it is, I think more and more females are required to work outside the home, because the economy has certainly hurt them in the fact that they can't stay at home. There has to be two salaries coming in, or two professions, or even you name it. But I'm probably not being very erudite with that,
You're
but
exactly
I'm being
right.
honest.
You're exactly right. I mean, that's what I've experienced. That's what I've observed in studying this. You're kind of reinforcing a lot of my hypotheses
Oh,
about
okay,
the
good.
situation. Let me ask you this. A question I want to go back to.
Okay.
What does motherhood mean to you?
Ooh, I've kind of that's interesting, because I've kind of gotten chills when you ask me that. I don't think anyone has ever asked me that. It means caring and loving, discipline, understanding, keeping your mouth closed at certain times, getting gray hair. It's beautiful, and it's absolutely a miracle when you birth a baby and you see the tiny little fingers, and all you want to do is you want everything in their life to be perfect. Everything. From the time you see them to as long as you're around. So I think it's a whole circle, and it's lots of different slices in that circle. And there's so many that you would end up getting a little tiny sliver if you slice the pie into servings, because it encompasses so many things. Motherhood is not just by itself. I mean, you've got a husband that helped you hopefully birth these children, and stayed with you and understand when you are tired and cranky, and understand when you're happy and joyful. So it's so many things that I might spend the rest of 6 months wondering if I said the right thing here today.
Well, you also, by mentioning the partnership, that also connects back to the question of balance, right? If a woman
Yes.
has a good partner,
Yes,
that can help with that balancing
yes.
of work inside and outside the home.
It's teamwork, I think. But they're a team of two, and sometimes one doesn't catch the ball and one doesn't throw it as well, right? Like
That's right.
football.
You may have already mentioned this, but I want to ask it again because the question's worded slightly differently. How did your membership on the South Carolina Mother Association Committee impact you, impact your family, impact the community? Is there anything else you want to say about your role or your experience serving on that committee, and any impacts that it had?
Each mother that was selected, and particularly I can speak for the two that when I was president of it, or chairman of it. They were absolutely so thrilled to be selected. And of course, most of them are nominated by maybe a member of their family or a member of a friend at church or different ways. And they were all so humbled. They couldn't believe it. And it made me feel, it made us feel, I should say, ecstatic. We were doing something really that was appreciated. And a lot of their stories, I think, have made good impacts on the committee. We got to learn about different moms and what they had been through, if they had not had a college education, and if and they were writing books and they were teaching school because they'd gone back to school. It was very rewarding to me to be on the committee, to read about the ones that did not get selected, and of course the one that was selected. And it was tough competition, and it was tough to make a decision each year.
Do you remember, you said that you were chair 2 years, either what
One.
years you were chair or what mothers were the winning mothers?
The Mother of the Year when I was chairman, the first one was Dean Risher from Camden.
Yeah.
And she was a very dynamic person.
I think we're going to get to interview her tomorrow, so I'm excited about
Well, you will be very impressed with her. And I really felt like I had a good Christian on my side that year. I hope I didn't offend her any, because she really is. She was dynamic in what she believes. Now she has very strong beliefs, and it was wonderful getting to know her. And then the other one was a black lady from Myrtle Beach, I think. And she was nominated by a professor from coastal Carolina, Charles.
Is it Marjorie Mitchell?
Marjorie
Mitchell?
I know who you're talking about. I know Janet Cotter, I think, nominated her. Mitchell. I can't think right now, I'm sorry.
Okay. We'll
But anyway, she was outstanding. And it was a pleasure to go down to the coast and have the newspaper come and to write up in the Myrtle Beach News or something. I've forgotten the name of it. And she was so thrilled, and her family was so thrilled.
And did you participate in the ceremonies at the governor's mansion?
Oh yes, yes, and that was always a delight. And they were always. The governor was always really, really excellent with the little children that came, the grandchildren of the Mother of the Year, all ages, and so was the First Lady of South Carolina at the tea. She was always there, and a lot of they could invite. I think it was about 100, maybe more, of their friends, and we sent the invitation out, and then they gave us the names. And that was always special and happy, and it was, of course, fun to be there for me.
That sounds so great. What do you think are the most important issues facing women today?
There are a lot. I'm glad I'm kind of glad I don't have to bring up children, because I don't know how I could adapt to all these different things, but I would have to. And I think I think it's difficult for them to this day, because I think the news most of the time has all the bad things in it. And so that can influence, if you want publicity, if you want to be good or bad or indifferent, you just do something bad and it's going to be in the newspaper and on television. And that's not good. I want them to be more happy and positive and good things to inspire young people. And I think that's tough for mamas now. And for daddies.
That's true.
I don't know if that answers your question or
No,
not,
it does.
Jennifer.
I think access to negative news and negative media, and certainly social media, the fact that everybody can be constantly in a public.
Don't get me started.
I mean, I think when I heard you speak, that's right away what I thought of, was just kind of how there is greater access to a lot more negativity that maybe we could shelter our kids from in previous generations.
Yes, yes.
Technology, it's a good and bad. They're good and bad
Yeah,
aspects.
there are good things about it, but I think I think privacy sometimes is a good thing.
Mhm.
Maybe not completely privacy, but I think pretty much so, because I think the world out there doesn't have everybody in it that feels like you do, or feels like I do, or feels like we feel about motherhood. And they can pick up too much information about a good guy or a good. It's just, I think it's my vintage too, Jennifer. That it's not because I didn't grow up with it. It's just I see the harm sometimes that it can do, and maybe I see that too much. Maybe I ought to start thinking of the positive things it does, but I haven't found any yet. So I don't guess the people that do cell phones would like me very much, or computers very much, or Facebook would not like me at all. And those other names, hashtags and all those things, I don't, they're not in the dictionary yet.
That's right. It's true, we're creating new words.
I can Google them though. I can Google them.
Google and tweet. Okay, let me ask you this. What does feminism mean to you?
Well, at one time it was a negative to me, because maybe I didn't understand it as like I should have. And I don't know that I understand. I think different people have different ideas and opinions of what it means. I understand. I think that females should get, if they're doing the same job that the males are doing, they should be recognized and paid for that. I wouldn't like it if I was doing the same thing you were doing and you got all the money and I didn't, and I just knew that I was doing a good job and I was performing well and my duties were on time and blah, blah, blah.
That's right.
So I do think equal pay is important either way. I mean, I don't think a female should be overpaid if she's the CEO and the CEO over there doesn't get it, if they're in the same situation.
Right.
I think it should be equal.
Right.
And it depends so much, though, on the person, in my opinion. They don't, just because they are CEO or they're vice president, they shouldn't just get a bonus. It depends on how well they perform, their performance.
Yeah.
But then I probably won't be hired anywhere as a boss man, you know, because I say, you better do that thing right.
Do you consider yourself a feminist?
There again, what is the definition of a feminist?
Well, it's a great question. I mean, I've been asking. I've interviewed women in Mozambique and Nicaragua, and I've asked them what feminism means to them. And now I'm interviewing women in South Carolina, asking
Right.
what. So I'm real interested in how people define feminism. I think for me, what you said, that feminism at its core is about equal opportunities,
Yes.
equal rights, equal pay for women and men. So I think that really is a core element. I think feminism can mean different things to different people, but I think the idea of equality is probably at its core. And so if I'm agreeing with you and your definition, under that definition, do you consider yourself a feminist, someone who believes in?
Yes, I do believe that the equal pay, equal rights, but I do think it should be based on not just because you're a female or you're a male or the color of your skin. I think it should be based on performance. And if you can't perform, then it's understandable that you need to go into a different profession or find different avenues. If this one is not, you're not performing in it, you need to find something else that you would be happier doing and would be better. Do a better job, or
That's good.
particularly, it's just, it needs to be based on,
A true meritocracy.
yes.
Right? You merit, you get
Yes,
what you merit.
that's a
based
good
on
word.
work
I hadn't thought of that
performance.
one. That's it. I like
Well,
being
some-
with a professor.
Some people think we have a meritocracy in America, but I think others can challenge. Some people seem to get paid more just because of their position in the company, right? As you were saying before, VP of this or CEO
Mhm.
of that, but their performance may not warrant that pay, and so I think what you're calling for is a true meritocracy where one's merit will
Yes.
actually determine
Yes.
their reward. And I think a lot of Americans would be happier if we lived in a more meritorious society.
I think so. They'd be happy in their profession or whatever they're bringing home the bacon with,
That's
so
right.
to speak.
That's right. Do you have any questions for us, or any comments, or anything else you'd like to share about womanhood, motherhood?
Well,
women's
first of all,
issues?
I'd like to ask how you became a professor at Winthrop.
That's a great question. I had a wonderful mentor. I went to a college called Western Maryland College. It's now called McDaniel College. They changed their name. It's a private liberal arts college in Maryland. Had an amazing mentor, Christiana Nichols Leahy, and she taught me everything. I am who I am today because of Christiana, because of a teacher who changed my life, and she turned me onto the developing world and Mozambique. I did a dissertation topic comparing Mozambique and Nicaragua, women's roles in these two countries that have had socialist-inspired revolutions that no longer exist. And so I went to CUNY, City University of New York, got my PhD, and then I applied for tenure-track positions all over the country. And Winthrop University was one of a handful who gave me an interview, and I came down and I visited. This was in 2002. And I loved the campus. I loved
It's
the
a pretty
students
campus.
I met. I loved my faculty colleagues. When I remember the plane, I was flying back to New York, and the plane was landing, and I started to cry because I thought, can I really leave this city that I've come to love? I came to love New York City.
I'm sure.
I lived there for 8, 9 years. But I kind of knew that this was the job for me. It was exactly in my field, teaching women in global politics, international political economy. And so I moved from New York City to Rock Hill, South Carolina, and I met my husband at Winthrop. I have a 5-year-old son at Winthrop. I've been here since 2002, haven't looked for another job since.
How wonderful.
So it's been just
Well,
a
that
wonderful...
gives me chilly bumps. So
Oh.
it's been a happy, it's not an ending.
It's
It's just a
yeah.
happy going on.
Exactly. I mean, I appreciate your asking me that.
Well,
because-
I'm interested in that because I met you and I'm interested in you. And I'm going to ask her the same thing. Where is she from?
I'm from Somerville, South Carolina.
Oh, you lucky thing with that pretty brick down there.
It is.
Oh, it's gorgeous. Do you live in one of those pretty brick homes? If you don't, it's not a
No.
problem. But you know what I'm
I
talking
live in
about.
those crappy suburbs that they started building when everyone moved there.
What a lovely place it is.
Mhm.
And you went to public schools there?
Yep, Knightsville before we moved for a little bit to North Carolina. Then we came back, went to Rawlings Middle School of the Arts, and then Somerville High School.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a pretty. Have you been down in there?
I'm not. I need to go
You
visit
need to
Michaela.
go whenever the azaleas all start blooming.
Yes.
Festival. That's
Yes.
the
Let her
best.
know when, because then you just think you're in heaven.
Mhm.
I mean, and they're not brand new azaleas. They've been there and been there and been there.
Well, this project has been amazing in helping with Martha and Shirley and Michaela. We've been driving across the great state of South Carolina, interviewing committee members and mothers, and so I've been able to see a lot more of the state due to this
Well,
project.
Shirley and Martha, as I told them when I hadn't seen them in a while, they are the best. They have been really ongoing, wonderful members of that committee. And I just, as soon as I was on it when they got on it, and I just gathered, I mean, they were just, the committee is just like best friends, and I was sorry but it was time. I think at one time, this committee, you probably have learned, was ongoing. When you became a member of this committee, you stayed on until you went to the beyond, either there or up there. And but then I think it was wonderful because there's so many members that have stayed on it so long, so it has a lot of continuity to it, you know. But then new blood always has good ideas, and younger ones came, and Shirley was delightful, and Shirley got Martha, and she's just precious fun too. And I'm very happy that Ann Flynn, talked her into being a member.
I did learn that today, that's right.
So, and her mother was the one that was on it and asked me to join. And her mother and my husband are first cousins.
Oh, wow.
So whatever that is, if you study genealogy, I'm one cousin, second cousins, or two removed or something with Ann, you know.
Wow.
But I'm sure it's been interesting to meet the different people. And I hope you've enjoyed listening to the elderly speak sometimes.
I've enjoyed. Well, I've been telling them it's like a whole different world to me because I didn't grow up with the families that like had established homes or were still together.
Right.
So it's been just a completely different world. I've really enjoyed it.
Good, good, because it's not often that my vintage, and I just don't say I'm the elderly, but I am the elderly. Every time the weatherman comes on and said, the index is so and so. Now, be careful with the elderly and little babies. And I don't know what in between, you know. But it's not easy sometimes, I think, for young people to enjoy talking to older people. But do you have a grandmother?
Yes, they live in Ohio.
Oh, do you have a writer?
And I can't say that I've written her. We'll call and talk.
Do you text her?
She's not that good at texting, but I call her.
Okay, but do you ever write her a letter?
No, I haven't.
You know what? I bet you if you wrote her a letter in the snail mail, she would absolutely love it. And if you write her, tell her what you're doing. Don't tell her anything bad that you're doing, if you're doing anything. But she would love to see that and read it, because see, it's something in your hands that you don't have to go push a button and find the contacts and all that.
Yeah.
Because she can read it over and over and over again. That's one of the things that I think is going to be really missed in the future, because everything's going to be in the clouds,
Right.
Yeah.
you know, and
That's
I
true.
think, do me a favor, write her a letter.